Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Better Body Radio, and we are back with our next installment of Meet the Coaches series. And today we're joined by Coach Charlie Barclay. Charlie, how you doing?
Very good, mate. Thank you.
Very nice. Thanks for coming on. And listen, we'll just dive straight in here. I thought, and we kind of spoke off air about this, that one of the key reasons why I wanted to do a Meet the Coaches series is that I think often people throw up a website, they maybe have a social media profile, but you don't really get to know the coach that well. And so I think giving each of you guys a chance to tell your backstory, talk a little bit about your experiences, what got you into the industry and why you do what you do, I think is a great way for everyone out there to get to know you guys a bit better.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I started off, originally my kind of sporting background was kind of swimming and then water polo a little bit later after that. So all kind of endurance-based sport. And I was always kind of the skinny, lanky guy at school. And then when I got to university, I got really heavily into going to the gym because I was sharing a flat with a bunch of rugby guys who were all significantly bigger than me. And yeah, so it was just kind of a baptism of fire. But I ended up actually really getting into lifting, strength training, diving down that rabbit hole to the point where by the time I graduated with BSc in biological sciences, I didn't really want to do anything in industry anymore. So I kind of pivoted into fitness. So I kind of jumped straight into the personal training game. And within that, I've been through the ringer as well. I've dabbled in CrossFit, I've done triathlons, I've done kind of a little bit of everything. But then recently, really my passion and kind of what I love has been what got me into the gym in the first place, which is getting bigger, building muscle, losing body fat, looking shredded, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I've landed and ended up now.
Awesome. So in terms of how you got started in the industry, and kind of we'll start with that bit first, and then to once you've kind of told us a bit about almost your journey, like what was your first PT job, and then what was the kind of journey after that and the different places you ended up, because I'd imagine you started back in the UK and then of course you ended up in Dubai, where we obviously met, and then once you've kind of explained a bit about that, tell us a bit more about at which point did you kind of realize this is the career for me, this is what I need to be doing.
Yeah, perfect. So my first gym job was actually not even as a personal trainer, it was a fitness instructor. I was quite lucky that I managed to get in with a very small, it's actually like a council run group of leisure facilities in Peterborough. But what it let me do was you could kind of go in industry and they'd pay for my level 2 and level 3 qualifications. So I kind of ended up doing it kind of on the job, which was actually really good, because it was, rather than like being qualified and being like, right, now you have to pay all this gym rent and this and that, it was like I was working in the gym already, and you're just slowly building up your confidence and knowledge. So that was actually a really cool way of doing it. So yeah, jumped in as like fitness instructor, so not even PT, cleaning the machines, doing all that kind of ed side of things. And then once I got my level 3, I was like PT basically for them. But Peterborough, not exactly the most affluent part of the world. So as soon as I kind of got an offer from someone, it was in Abu Dhabi originally. So they then got into Fitness First in Abu Dhabi, and that was my first proper PT job with like actual big roster of clients. So from there, I got to get lots and lots of hands-on with different people, and then moved to Dubai, and then started off on my own in Dubai. And I've forgotten the second half of the question.
Second half was, because I mean, so that took you to Dubai to Fitness First, and then obviously I know that you then went on to, I don't know if you're able to mention previous employers or your experience at the more boutique facility, and then obviously getting into warehouse, if you're okay to share that, and share that as well. And then, just what point did you realize, this is the career I need to stick with?
Right. Really early, I ended up thinking like, this is what I need to do. Pretty much from the first time after about 4 months in Abu Dhabi and having like an actual, proper roster of like clients, was like, this is what I want to be doing. Like, didn't know yet kind of exactly what I wanted to do. Like, I was still quite heavily into CrossFit at the time. I was like, I'd met you briefly on like the calisthenics, did a calisthenics course in warehouse, there's a CrossFit strongman course, stuff like that. Like, so I was still dabbling in different bits and pieces, trying to figure out exactly my niche. But I was sure I wanted to do fitness and helping people get better really early on. I just know my niche. So yeah, then I ended up moving across to Ultimate Performance. So very like, yeah, boutique niche. Part of one-on-one training and very specifically body composition, and that's where I really like solidified. I'd already done a couple of men's physique shows by that point, but that was more like for me personally. And then I realized working for some place like that, like, oh, actually this is what I like doing, like really getting big body composition changes and getting people some quite picture worthy results, I guess. And then yeah, from there went out on my own, and now we train people out of warehouse together, which is fun.
Definitely. And I think it's interesting because I kind of covered this this same thing with Max, because he's also had quite a mixed experience in his kind of lead up into the industry and going through his time. And he actually started out in a strength and conditioning facility, and then of course he also went through this whole back in England as well. I think he was in Leeds is where he was, and then he went through this kind of whole process of kind of came over to Dubai, and then did the more general gym floor PT, then got into a boutique facility like D5. So it's funny how our coaches, they all have very different stories about their journeys, but they also have quite a lot of shared aspects as well. Like for me, body composition was the kind of last thing that I've got into now focused seriously. My first 9 years in the industry has actually been more focused on pretty much everything other than body composition, at least for myself. In terms of clients, there's always an element of that going on. But I think the interesting thing was, and I'm sure you maybe noticed this yourself, and this will lead on to question 3 really nicely, is when you start diving into body composition yourself a bit more seriously, it's quite interesting how that then informs the way that you start approaching body composition clients. Because if I look at how I handle body composition clients even 2 or 3 years back versus now, it's quite different in terms of the mindset and in terms of the structures and the systems that go into it. So based on that, then when it comes to your experience of competing in physique competitions and successfully at that, because I believe your last show you well, not the international one, but the one before that, you placed third, was it?
Yep, third, and then that qualified me for Worlds, and then we went to Worlds.
Yeah, so just firstly tell us a little bit about your recent shows, and then the follow-up question to that will really be, how have your experiences competing impacted the way that you kind of now coach your clients?
Yeah, so that was brilliant. Like this 2019, that was 2020 now, but the last 2019 competitive season was really good. It was like my first proper natural bodybuilding show. So I'd always done it kind of for myself, but I'd competed in untested federations, which was a bit of a morale killer, because you just end up being on stage with guys who are like 20 kilos heavier than you, and it's just a bit of a nightmare. But so I took a few years off to grow anyway, and like get a bit deeper into the old muscle building stuff, and getting my head buried in there. And then in 2019, I kind of figured, right, time to see what's underneath the hood and get back onto the stage again. There's always been something I've been into. It's just I knew I needed to put some groundwork in first before getting into it. So yeah, 2019, I thought, right, I'm going to go with the WMBF because I know they polygraph test everyone, which that might not be the most reliable way of doing it, but at least the top 3 of every category get urine tested like to WADA standards, basically. So you can be reasonably confident that you're going to be at least on a level playing field with people. And that was amazing. I had the best time. It was such a good experience. So I went to Germany to do the qualifier, where I came third in the tall class, and that qualified me for Worlds. So a month after that, got on the plane to New York and competed in New York amongst the people who were turning pro, or all the pros across the world, which was like pretty ridiculous, really. Like looking through the crowd, and you're seeing people like Valentin Tambosi and AJ Morris just like in the crowd, like, this is so weird, but okay, cool, this is where I want to be. Like, I love it. This is where I want to belong. And I love that side of things still. Like the natural bodybuilding side of things, particularly like for men's physique, it is like a huge passion of mine. But in terms of how that goes to clients. Depends on their goals, but the one thing it's taught me really is like how important it is just to be consistent and hit those, like, I guess, daily minimums. Like, because and I get this when I teach like other PTs about like in this nutrition education stuff I do, is like, I didn't do as much crazy stuff as you'd expect to get into that kind of condition.
Yeah.
I just did a lot of the basic stuff every single day. Whether that was steps, hitting my calories, hitting my protein, training. That is the biggest carryover that goes even to Gen Pop people, is like, okay, the stuff you have to do daily minimally might not be as much, but it's still, if you can guarantee that you're doing a couple of those things, 3, 4, 5 of these things on a checklist every day, you'll get the result eventually. You just need to be consistent.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely brilliant point, because I think one of the things I get across to my clients a lot is that if you look at what physique competitors essentially do year in, year out, is that it's essentially what they're maybe only willing to go through once or twice to get themselves in shape. It's a season in, season out, potentially sometimes multiple times in a season. They're just going through these phases of focused fat loss, reverse dieting, focused maintenance, or ideally off-season building, bringing up those lagging body parts, filling in those weak gaps. For the general pop, it's actually not all that much different. I think the biggest thing that kind of wanes or differs between the gen pop and people who compete or take it a bit more seriously is that the ability to stay dialed in for longer extended periods of times is just a lot harder for them. They just don't find it so easy.
Yeah.
But the clients who do tend to hold on to the results long term, like you said, I always say it varies by degree, not by kind. It's all the same actions. It's just the degree of sacrifice or the degree of effort, or for example, how advanced you need to be in your training, the type of loads and volume you need to potentially be accumulating to have a physique that shows that. That's really where it differs. But you know, at the end of the day, we all go to the gym to lift weights to improve our physique. We all have to get our NEAT in by getting our steps or other things. We all need to focus on our sleep. We need to make sure we're getting the right energy balance and food quality, and it's all the exact same stuff. Like, it's just no magic formula to it. It's just the guys who get stage condition, as Cal said, is they're just willing to go to the physiological edges of it or extremes, and they're willing to suffer a bit more. And so I think then conversely to that, like you said, if you looked at the degree that you've went to get on stage versus what your clients need to, if you actually think about it, it's a lot. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's much easier than a lot of clients, I think, believe it is to get in shape when you really compare both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. And even I've talked to not even just clients, but other PTs about this, perhaps, who've got down to like 8% body fat. And it's like, how do I get shredded? And it's like, you know what you did to get to 8%? You just do that for longer. But what happens to most people, and I can totally relate because I know what it feels like, is you get to that point and you're hungry, you're a bit tired. You're also in that slightly annoying point where you're not shredded and you're not full. So you just look small, which is always a bit depressing.
Just stringy and kind of not feeling 100%, and you can start questioning like, why the hell am I doing this?
You're in the worst middle ground. Yeah, exactly. But I say to them, like, what you did to get there, you just have to keep doing it. There's nothing changed, nothing got that special. You just have to keep going, sadly, which is sometimes the hardest part.
Being willing to go a little bit lower on energy availability and being willing to embrace the suck that little bit longer. So if I think about the last fat loss phase I did with Cal, and I don't realize this until I look back on my photos, but I was probably about 4 or 5 weeks out from stage condition. And
I remember seeing you in the gym and thinking, like, you wouldn't be far off.
Yeah. And so I kind of get now, like, all right, well, Jesus, like, that was quite a lot of hard work to get there. But the funny thing was, going through those initial, 16, 20 weeks, whatever it was, I think once you're that far down the path, at that stage, you're just kind of living off of, well, it's 4 more weeks. Yeah, it's not great, and it sucks a little, and but it's 4 weeks. And I think as you get closer and closer to that checkpoint, it's just kind of, well, that's what kind of carries you through. I think maybe then what's hard for a lot of Gen Pop clients is that, unfortunately, that checkpoint for them, or the kind of quote unquote initial end goal, is it feels like it's so far away, and the reality is it might be much further away than they think it is, but then I think we've all spoken about this before. When you manage expectations and you kind of say to a client, listen, you might need to be willing to give this like a year, 18 months. If they're already coming to you quite lean, even then I would say often they need a lot longer than they think they do. So if there's a cool lesson to take from Coach Charlie's story about, you know, getting on stage and everything else, is that it takes as long as it takes, and it just doesn't vary. There's no no magic sauce to any of this. It just varies by degree rather than kind.
Exactly. And I say that to people as well. It's like, oh, how long did you prep for? And it's like, well, technically kind of 16, 20 weeks, but also technically 3 years. Like, I first jumped on stage in 2016, and from 2016 to 2019, I was prepping. Like, I was getting ready to do it, but I had to put, you know, 2.5 years of groundwork in to actually get a bit more muscular and, you know, all this kind of stuff. So same for Gen Pop. It's like, you know, we might have a 16-week phase, but understand there's going to be the journey is longer than that realistically. But again, that can be where, like, you know, if they've got holidays coming up, or maybe they're interested in maybe doing like a photo shoot where they have to get super lean, but, you know, something you can like put a pin in. These kind of things for more Gen Pop people can actually be really handy, because then that's their 4 more weeks type thing where they can get that little bit of momentum from thinking, right, you know, going on holiday in 4 weeks, going on holiday in 8 weeks. It gives them at least, it's the same as where my checkpoint was the stage. Their checkpoint is the holiday or wedding, family event, whatever.
Yeah, that's actually also a fantastic point, because I think it's, as coaches, and I'm sure you've had a couple, I certainly have a couple, and I've had these conversations with clients recently. That's why I don't even mind saying this live on the podcast. But, you know, I had to say to a few of them, like, you're coasting a little bit and you're a little bit complacent because there's no urgency. And so what happens when you set these dates is that it's not putting this crazy pressure on you that you have to achieve X by Y time, but actually putting just a realistic time frame on it. And like you say, something you can put a pin in, it just creates a bit more urgency. And I think people often also know, like, if they know, like, right, I can see the finish line, that in itself keeps you a bit more dialed in and accountable. So I think that's a super important point about taking your goal and reverse engineering it back to the present day. So that's brilliant. Charlie, what motivates you?
Really, really powerful.
For sure. What motivates you as a coach?
I just like seeing people get results. I love it. Like, that is that's what motivates me. So yeah, my own personal motivations is obviously me going from, hopefully from now on, from like season to season, seeing some differences. But to coach other people, it's about, like, because for me it was always a confidence thing, right? Like, I was skinny, not particularly confident, and like I wanted to build confidence by building my body, which has to a certain extent worked. And it's the same for people I work with. I think whether they're not confident because they're bigger and then they're getting into a size they feel confident in, or they were in my position, I think that's what I feed off. The pictures are nice, but I love, like, people messaging me and being like, oh, you know, I don't know, even small things like, oh, I had the confidence to say no when the donuts were getting handed out at work. I'm like, that's cool, because that's, you know, where they would crumble before because they weren't confident in their own ability to say, I don't want the donut. Like, that's it. So for me, it's seeing people's changes, both physically and mentally. I love it.
Absolutely. And I think it's funny, like, when you talk about that example of the donut, it's also, imagine like a client being in a position where, well, I also was in a position where I could say, yes, I will have the donut and I'll stop at one and it won't ruin the rest of my plan. That as well. And so, like, it's
that too.
People think it's so black and white, but it's not. It's like that empowerment of different strategies and different situations, and everything comes with a reward and a consequence. And sometimes the consequence is, okay, well, it's taken away from your calorie budget, but the reward for that is that it gives you that feeling of social inclusion and that kind of enjoyment factor.
Exactly.
And so as long as you're emotionally intelligent enough and in control of your decisions enough to make those decisions either way, I think, like you said, those stories, to me, when people feel empowered to make informed decisions, that's I think one of the best things you can ever do for your clients. Yeah, the before and after photos are great, they're good for marketing, but the story behind the photos, that's the magic stuff right there.
Yeah, I love that as well, because that was one of my biggest issues, even for myself entering the industry, was like, you know, you're so confused, like, oh, is it, you know, about some of these black and white topics, and then, you know, Gen Pop and clients feel the same way, mostly because like stuff you see in the media is annoyingly black and white. But again, same thing, like when they suddenly, the penny drops and it's like, oh, there's actually a reasonable amount of gray and I can be quite flexible if I understand the principles. It's like, yes, because that's where that's where I was as well. I
Exactly.
always thought, right, it has to be chicken and vegetables or a pizza, and it's like, well, it can actually be both, to just less of each or something like that, you know. So that's a huge part of it as well. That kind of education process is pretty cool.
Definitely, definitely. If you had to summarize what, say, you specialize in when it comes to helping people, what is it?
Um, it's hard to nail down one thing. If I had to say one thing, it would be probably kind of the lifestyle nutrition education type side of things. Like that's probably where I focus a lot of my coaching. Um, I would like to say that there's some hypertrophy knowledge in there as well, but I think the people I've helped the most, at least, has been actually more around lifestyle and just getting a hold of their nutrition strategies and stuff like that.
Yeah. Cool. I think, like you said, it's interesting because I think even if, unless you become a coach who works with a lot of super, super advanced people, like say, for example, and I'm sure one day will earn the right, like the likes of your Callum Rice-Drakes and a lot of these other coaches, to work with so many other coaches. You have to earn that right to do that. And maybe that's not too far away. Let's see, right, in the near future. And I know certainly with
Yeah.
our plans with the Better Body Education, where we are planning to help and work with a lot more coaches. And so I think for me, that's where the time comes to really pay it forward and pass that on, especially to new up and coming coaches, or maybe coaches making a switch from kind of one discipline in the industry into the body composition realm, and being able to really help them fast track their knowledge and the way that they do things with their clients. And so, like you said, I think when you work with a day-to-day Gen Pop client, it's just not as simple as, you know, ticking the boxes and you know, and giving a set of calories and macros. There's just so much more to the lifestyle change and the mindset side of things, and really changing a lot of things like limiting beliefs and, you know, and getting them to challenge the way they currently think. I think all of that stuff is, like you said, that's the stuff that matters to that population. And who knows, maybe years down the line we're just teaching other coaches how to do that and, you know, pass the baton, so to speak.
That's it.
But I think it is, clients do like to know that you're constantly keeping up and keeping on top of your personal development. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of coaches in the industry that just don't care. It's just, well, that's me having to spend X amount. That's way too expensive for a course. And I'm sure you're the same. Like, I always tell, you know, clients and anyone I speak to, like, because they'll ask, like, you know, well, if you look at any other industry, for example, they pay, like, you know, for most of your certifications, for most of your education in most industries you're in. When it comes to personal trainers, we don't get anyone to fund that for us. We have to pay for all of our own personal development, all of our own education. And so all of a sudden you get to, like, you know, almost a decade, and that's almost over $20,000 from what I can gather spent on education so far. No one's paid that for you. You've had to put that right back into your own personal development. And I think, and this is always an interesting conversation when we, you know, and I'm sure you've had this as well, working with clients who have maybe worked with other coaches in the past who maybe haven't put as much of an emphasis on their personal development and education, and then you're charging a good bit more plus nutrition on top. And then it's like, well, that seems really expensive. It's like, well, is it expensive, or are you now actually just paying for the value of what you're actually going to get? And so that's
and
interesting.
Another thing to add to that as well is, like, a lot of the education that we do is not, you don't have any like piece of paper at the end of it. Obviously for some of them you do, and to get like your kind of your reps points and this and that, you can do certain ones, but the most valuable ones, bits of continuing education I've ever done, doesn't come with some certificate at the end of it. Like we did Coach Eugene Tio's seminar, weekend seminar a couple of years ago, and like that was unbelievable. But it's just you're just getting knowledge off some guy. Like there's no piece of paper at the end of it, but it's probably some of the most valuable continuing education I've done. So it's like that's also a bit of a tricky thing to try and explain to people. Like some of this stuff you can't put on your CV. Like but you know you took away heaps, so it's tricky.
Yeah, it's kind of working with other practitioners, consulting with all these knowledgeable coaches, and then applying it in practice, taking it away, and applying it in practice, taking it away. And that's that constant in the trenches
Yeah,
work, which I think for a lot of us who are now obviously being forced to work a lot more online in recent times with the whole Corona situation, I think it just gives people who have been on the gym floor for years, when they do make more of a transition to online or fully online coaching, it just puts you in such a better position to service your clients, because you understand what the gym floor is all about, and you've probably problem shot a lot more issues in person than you ever do online. So I think that's super interesting.
yeah. Again, like that's why, like, I'll never kind of disrespect the time I spent at kind of your fitness first kind of changing, because although they get a bad rap, I saw so many people. Like, you have such a throughput of clients. You've worked with people with hip replacements. I've worked with people who are like triathletes. I've worked with, well, casual triathletes, not professional, obviously, but that's they're pretty fit.
Yeah,
People who want to lose fat, people who want to gain muscle, kids, older adults, like, which is cool. So, like, again, speaking to that, that journey is really important from where your coaches come from as well, because it's going to dictate kind of how much scope they've got under their belt.
definitely. And I think one thing that was interesting as well, when you were talking about your initial experience back at Fitness First, and when you started out, the whole like cleaning the treadmills and walking the gym floor. Max and I I think Max went on a bit of a rant after this, and it was a pretty good tangent, but it was just a lot of trainers now, especially you see it out here, are so spoiled in terms of them starting out. Like, the gym literally hands them clients. They get to sit around the gym or kind of, just train in the free time. And, I guess they never had to go through that real step outside your comfort zone stuff of, right, I need to walk the gym floor. I've got 0 clients right now. I need to literally walk the gym floor and speak to people who possibly don't really want to be spoken to, but I have to win their trust and develop rapport. And I told Max the story of all the things I did when I was working in my first health club in DW Sports in the East End of Glasgow, which again, not a super, not a very wealthy area by any stretch of the imagination. And yeah, I did spinning, aqua aerobics, MetaFit. I mean, I literally tried to I even did a Pilates certification, would you believe, as well. You do everything you try to do just to try and get by and get a foothold and kind of and build a bit of an idea about what the hell you're going to do with your bloody time in the industry. And I think that...
Here's a good question. How much was your PT session?
How much was my first PT session? What, in terms of charging?
How much did you charge for your first PT session?
30 quid.
Oh, wow. That's actually pretty high. Nice.
And that was the general rate that the gym said you have to charge this. You can't charge.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes you would do packages. And I remember packages, people bought a higher pack and they would get it. It would end up being like 22 quid in the end for a session and all that stuff. Obviously, comparing that to nowadays, that's a very different conversation nowadays. But
I remember doing my first PT session for £10.
Yeah.
Which is so weird, like, looking back. It's just when you don't understand how things work.
And the funny thing is, though, like, if you look back, you think to yourself, well, was I really worth much more than that? And actually, you probably think, well, actually, not really, potentially. But it's amazing how many trainers literally come out of the reps level 3, especially over here, and like, right, I want to start charging like 400 dirhams an hour. It's like you haven't earned your stripes yet. Like, you need to take the time and build a experience. And so, I mean, this by the way,
at least be able to deliver on that.
Exactly. I mean, this is not about, don't get us wrong when we're having this dialogue, it's not about shitting on new trainers. It's more just, if you are someone who's brand new coming into the industry, just stay humble, stay super hungry. Because one thing I think any coach I've spoken to, and this is the same with yourself, Max, Emar, even speaking to Mark bloody 27 years later, is the one thing that coaches have that have stuck around and kept their skin in the game for a long period of time, is that they're always hungry to get better and to learn more. They never feel like they know everything. And I think the day you feel like, right, I've got nothing else to learn, your days are numbered in the industry.
Yeah. I mean, that's I'm even now in lockdown, I'm like craving some education, which is good. But I think that's one thing that's come up recently that I think some coaches need to take advantage of. Everyone, is like membership sites. Like I've found they've been so good and cheap to just bury your head in them and just devour some content. So that's that, especially during lockdown now. It's awesome just to like, you know, you can throw down $5 or $10 for a month and just have like heaps of information just to get into, which will hopefully when we come out the other side of this will be super applicable, and you'll be like so far ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And I think anyone who's been smart is kind of dividing their time by, right, I need to work on building my business, and at the same time I need to level up. And so I mean, actually that's something we'll talk about off air afterwards, but we actually invested in the M10 seminars this coming weekend and the weekend after. So nice. we're gonna invite people over to watch that, or we're gonna record it and share the recordings with the team, because even though we've been in industry a long time, like I've known Dan Smith, the head coach M10, for a long time, and you know, one thing I always think about which is why I think there needs to be someone that steps up and delivers good education out here in the Middle East. There's nothing like the level of M10 out here, and I think a lot of coaches in the UK hugely underappreciate just how many very good coaches they have to learn from over there. Like having the muscle mentors there, having M10. There's just a bunch of having integrated education for the RTS stuff. There's just a ton of super good people to learn from. So definitely don't take that for granted at all. And then I pay £50 a month for the Muscle Mentors membership site. And so they've got, I mean, female physiology, biomechanics, hypertrophy science, gut health. I mean, like you say, there's just so much for such a low cost that you could dive into and develop yourself. It's worth taking advantage of for sure.
Yeah, it really is. And you can even just like, it's nice to be a member of them for ongoing, but you know, if you are a bit strapped in this time, like you can get onto one for 1 month, go really hard at it, and then you can jump out and find another one. It's no big deal.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Well, this has been a fantastic chat, Charlie. So we'll close it up there, but just firstly, just want to obviously commend you for just being a very strong representation of what a good fitness professional looks like in the industry. Obviously, we've known you for a long time, and we respect the way you conduct yourself and the professionalism and that kind of thirst and hunger for continually learning and doing a great job for your clients. So just want to commend you for that first. And it was obviously a no-brainer for us when we sat down and had a chat about collaborating and getting you involved in the Better Body team. It was just literally a no-brainer. So yeah, just want to commend you for that first.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, for sure. So
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Of course. Where can people find you?
Place for me is probably Instagram. So I'm at CDB Fitness. Yeah, like that's probably where I'm most active. I answer my DMs and comment on posts and stuff like that. So that's a good place to find me. But yeah, that's
so remember, guys, CDB, not CBD like the oil. They ain't trying to sell you that shit.
No, yeah, no, none of that. It's the initials.
Cool, guys. So what we'll do is we'll link Charlie's Instagram handle in the show notes, both on YouTube and on Apple iTunes. Now, speaking of Apple, the best way that you can support us as a team and the podcast in these early stages is to go onto Apple iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. And if there's anything that Charlie or myself said throughout this podcast that resonated with you specifically, drop in a little comment as well. We truly do appreciate it. And as we bring on more expert speakers and we try and get even more quality information in front of as many people as we can, the best way we can reach as many people is for you doing exactly that. Guests that you might want to tune in for if you listen to this episode, we've recorded a bunch of different interviews with different coaches in the UK that I had the pleasure of sharing a stage with at the CoFit 19 event that was hosted by Iron Paradise Fitness. Some fantastic topics that they discussed on there. We also recently recorded an episode with Callum Rystrick of the Muscle Mentor, so that'll be really fun to share with everyone as well. And we've got Dan Smith of M10 coming on soon as well to chat about body transformations and training the general population. So definitely keep your eyes peeled or your ears peeled potentially for those episodes. Charlie, once again, thank you for coming on, and we will catch up with you soon.
Pleasure, mate.